Tonight's show is produced by Mars. Enjoy.
Hi, this is Benjamin Dover, and you're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Yes. Hey everybody, you're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is the Southern Pride Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host Roger Belt and Cindy John Pierre.
Hey, hey.
And we have with us the teacher, Mr. Frank Lee, tonight.
Well, hi Roger, hi Cindy. How are y'all tonight?
Good. How are you?
We are doing awesome.
I am great. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm super excited and glad to be here, and quite honored for you to have me back on the show. I always enjoy it and always have a great time talking to both of you. So,
we always enjoy having you.
Feelings mutual.
Well, great.
And we may have a visitor from one of the old shows, Frank. Dusty may pop in.
All right, good deal.
And of course, he's always a riot. So.
Oh
but
yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to we talked a little bit about some lighting stuff, and I wanted to go over that again. Something that you're working on there with lighting or something like that.
Right.
If you can elaborate a little bit.
Well, sure. You know, we a lot of times in the paranormal community, you've heard the myth of how the people use red lights because it's supposed to be so much better for your night vision and everything else. So, you know, they'll carry the red flashlights, and I'm not talking about infrared, but I mean, you know, the actual red itself. And, you know, when you carry those, or they'll get like the headlamps with the red bulbs.
Yeah.
I mean, they are a lot better about not blinding you, but you know, it's not going to really help your infrared very much. So, what I was actually looking at is, you know, red is still kind of a limited spectrum. You know, if you look at a color spectrum, you have just a little short bit of red, and then it gets off into the magenta and on from there. But have you ever wondered why actual night vision gear, and not saying infrared, but the full-on night vision is green?
Right.
That the reason for that is they actually add that in. That's not a side effect of the night vision process. They add a photophosphor cell into night vision equipment that turns the image green. It's like, and so I started looking at that and started wondering, well, why is that? And what it is that the human eye, the way our rods and cones in our eyes work, we can perceive more shades of green than we can any other color in the spectrum. And that's why if you look at something that's in black and white or something in red monochrome versus something in green, if you'll notice, you can perceive depth so much better. You can, you know, and that's just an experiment to try for that. If you don't believe me, is take a photo, or, you know, even if your TV has the adjustment to do it, you know, set it all the way to red, set it to black and white, and then set it to have the green tint, and see which image pops out the most at you.
Right.
So that being the case, what we started experimenting with was using green lights on our investigations. And it does make quite a bit of difference. Not only does it provide ambient light that, you know, it's by no means infrared, that, you know, it's ambient, it's visible light, so it's going to not only help the camera because it's not shooting into such a dark environment, but it's kind of a safety thing too, because now you have some visible light, so you're not walking around like we've all done at some time or another in pitch
the dark,
black.
Looking at a little window on a camera.
Right, because that camera window does not give you depth perception, and it does not scale right, and so that's really not safe. But when you can add that green light that is going to give you a good perception, it's going to help you physically see a little better, then it's kind of a win-win. Now you're getting better pictures, better video, and you're a little bit safer. And you don't have to buy anything expensive.
And that's the thing with people that's trying to get together gear and stuff on a budget.
Well, I mean, everybody knows the paranormal field is just the best money-making field there is, and we're all rich, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all getting rich doing this.
I started doing this, and now I'm in a higher tax bracket and all that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I figure I've spent probably I've probably made negative 18,000 or so over the past 15 years.
Frank, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, when you're filming with this green light, okay, tell us the difference you think that it makes if supposing you did catch something, okay, say your anomaly or even an entity or something like that. What difference does it make when you're filming that kind of stuff? Is it a sharpness? Is it more pronounced, or what are we looking at?
Well, the big thing is it's going to give you that depth perception better. It's going to help you compare more shades. You can see more shades of green than you can any other color. So it's going to help you there in determining, is this something maybe paranormal, or is this just a glare? It kind of helps you more than a black and white or just a solid red would. And not only that, but you have that visible light, but at the same time, it's dim enough that it's not going to really hurt your night vision as far as your eyes and the adjustment to the dark.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So it helps you to actually be able to see better,
mm-hmm.
but it's not going to
right.
affect the night vision part.
Right. It's not going to be bright enough to blind you, or like go from a fully lit room and flip off the switch, and then your eyes have to adjust and all that. And you're blind or worse. Even worse is when you're on an investigation, somebody has a regular flashlight and they shine it in your eyes and you're in the pitch dark. And, it's not like that. It's much softer, much easier on your eyes. So, you're not going to, have to deal with a lot of that. It kind of goes back to the old thing about the pirates. Have you ever wondered why pirates wore an eye patch? Do you think there were that many of them with one eye?
Well, no, but why exactly did a lot of them wear that patch? I know it don't have nothing to do with this, but I always wondered about that because you see a lot of the pictures of them with the patch
mm-hmm.
on one eye.
Well, and actually, the story about the pirates has been a lot of my inspiration to some of my research. And that's why I tell everyone, learn everything you can about everything you can. Because there may be something completely unrelated to the paranormal that's going to inspire you in some way.
That's true.
The popular legend, what most historians and scientists believe about pirates is that the reason for the eye patch was if you've got that one eye, and I don't know if anyone's ever worn an eye patch, but sooner or later when you first put
I have.
well, when you first put it on, it's pitch black. You see absolutely nothing. But when you after you've had it on for a little while, you get to where you can actually see the threads on the inside of it, and you can see a little bit. So because that eye has adjusted to the dark. Well, what a popular theory is that when pirates, if they were attacking another ship, or say their ship were attacked, if the fighting moved from the upper deck down into the gallows, then naturally it's going to be dark down there. And that would give them an upper hand, because when they went down below the deck, they're in a dark environment, and that was to give them an advantage by sliding the patch from the covered eye over to the other eye. Because now the eye that was covered is already adjusted to the dark. They don't have to wait for the rods and the cones in their eyes to focus anymore.
Huh. That's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm. So that that's something to think about, because it definitely makes sense, especially if they're going to do an ambush attack.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been out in the sunlight and you go into a dark room, then it's going to take you a few minutes. But if you've had one eye covered and you slide that patch over and uncover that eye that's already adjusted to the dark, you're ready instantly.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just a lot of things like that have gotten me to thinking about things that we do in the paranormal, and I know there's some things that I do that aren't quite the traditional method, but hey, if we're all doing the same thing, then we're never going to make any progress anywhere.
That's true. Now I'm going to ask a question that might not make a lot of sense, but if you were going in, and of course, it's always good if you can to do a daytime walkthrough of a place you're going to investigate, so you know your way around. But what if, say, 20 minutes or so before you go in there, that you covered up both your eyes and you let them adjust? And then when you went in, you would be more able to see what's going on around you.
It's definitely something that that is possible. Of course, I've
never thought about it until you brought that stuff up.
Right. I guess probably the only thing about covering up both eyes would be, just the time. It would be a little bit of an inconvenience.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you pre-planned it to where you had, like 20 minutes or so before you actually went in, to do that.
Right.
Would it help you when you went in, to be able to?
I guess it would depend on how dark it was on the inside. I never really thought about doing like both eyes or whatever, but it'd be something to experiment with.
Well, that's an idea.
Yep. Just main thing would be like if it were bright outside, but the place on the inside was dark.
Yeah.
As soon as you uncovered your eyes outside, it's going to be, oh my God, it's bright, and then you're going.
Well, I mean, what you would do basically is you would be, like right near the entrance. When you uncovered your eyes, you would be going in, But I mean, just something to experiment with to see, if it would help.
Right. Right.
We have a call, guys.
On the flashlight, the advantage would be gone.
Right.
Caller, you
Hey.
on there?
Hey, what y'all doing?
The Dustmeister.
How's it
What
going?
y'all up to? All right, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Haven't got to talk to you in quite a while.
I know, I'm always at work. Always at work.
That's what I hear. I heard they just put you on the inmate list.
Well, I told him I was going to commit a crime, so they put me in there where we could visit more, but
Right.
that's a bad idea.
Right.
I just come in there and take your cell phone.
Right.
So what's Dusty
What
been
y'all
up to
talking about?
besides work?
What?
I said, what have you been up to besides work?
Man, I've mowed my yard twice in 2 days, and just been piddling around the house. That's about it.
Hi, Dusty.
Hey, Cindy, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Hey, listen, before we go any further, Dita wanted me to tell you hi.
Oh, is she on? Is she on tonight?
Yeah,
She's in the chat room. She is in the chat room.
Oh, hey Dina. Sorry, I can't see the chat room because my computer cooked itself. So I'm on my tablet and it won't let me look at the chat room.
it should.
But I'm still beautiful. I'm still beautiful for all those that want to know.
It's already
Well,
been
y'all
announced. It's been announced in the chat room that you are the best looking guy in the paranormal. It was a paid political announcement. Thank you very much.
Well, that's good. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Glad to get that out right off the bat. All right, well, y'all go on talking about what you're talking about.
Dita said you're overmodulated, Cindy.
How's that now? Am I okay, or we need to come down some?
Because I come in
Frequency, the CPU.
modulated.
Even with invisible snakes.
Right.
Okay, so where were we, guys?
Then,
We were-
go ahead, Roger.
Oh, he wanted to know what we were talking about.
Of course, because I don't ever know what I'm talking about. So I don't know what y'all are.
Let me see. Well, we were talking about the lights and everything, and let's see. Where did our ADD take us from there?
I don't know, but I just completely had a loss of train of thought. Can you imagine? And it sounds like we all did.
Right.
That's what happens when I walk into a room. Everybody stops to stare.
It's your aftershave, Dusty. It's got to be the aftershave.
It's that high karate.
Right.
Karate.
You know,
Sure.
a place we investigated over the weekend. One part of the basement had some storage in there, and one room in particular was, and it was a good 12 by 12 room, literally piled, filling the entire floor, and piled up about 2 foot high were boxes upon boxes of Aqua Velva aftershave.
Heck yeah.
So,
Man, I'd be in heaven.
Well, so now you know what all the inmates used, or all the patients used.
Right. Right. It
I'd have
was
been
nothing but,
within-
it was Aqua Velva and plastic, the issued combs. So,
Probably what they injected them with to heal them was Aqua Velva, because it sure didn't smell that great.
that may be why there was so much of it left over.
It's for medicinal use only, Aqua Velva.
Well, you got to admit, though, I mean, there could be other worse things you could have found in there besides aqua velva.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I made sure to grab a couple bottles of it while we were in there, so it'd smell
What are you
good
gonna
from
do
a
with it?
girlfriend. Well, that way, if me and Laura have a date, then, I can go smelling all good and everything. Somebody like me, I need all the help I can get, so,
Got a comb to comb your hair and some aqua velva. Hey.
Fix yourself
That's what life's all about.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, give me a tuba or a can of Dapper Dan and some aqua velva and I'm all set.
Okay, wait a minute. What's Dapper Dan?
Ever watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
It's mustache and hair grease.
Oh, like Dixie Peach?
Right.
Ew.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've never heard of Dixie Peach, so.
It's like this really heavy waxy stuff that you put on mustaches and hair and stuff.
Well,
yeah, it's basically what it was. It
I've
come
heard
in a
of
can.
Peach, but it's usually a good-looking Southern girl with skimpy clothing on.
Right?
Okay, this is going off the tracks.
I know. We're going to go back into butter and bread before this is over.
I hadn't thought about that.
So
I'm good.
And after
the old bread.
After the break, we'll discuss how to use aqua velva and pomade on a paranormal investigation.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Mars said it sounds like a type of lube.
Yuck.
Hey Mars, how you doing, buddy?
Okay, so are you gonna tell us, Frank? I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but I've been dying to know all weekend. Did you get anything?
Yes. Actually, I've only gone through about 5% of what we got, and out of the video and audio that we picked up, out of that 5%, I've already pulled at least 10 good EVPs, and a couple of them Class A. And the first night we were there, and there have been so many times I've talked about weather and the solar activity and lunar activity and how that affects paranormal. Well, this weekend we got extremely lucky. Right as we were about to walk in to investigate, and there was a huge storm that came up. It started lightning and a lot of electrical activity in there. It was highly charged. And that night when we went in, the place was just crazy. So it made a significant impact. And we were able to tell the difference because that was Friday night. Saturday night when we went in to investigate, it was clear. And when we went in with the clear weather, the activity wasn't half as active as it was compared to the stormy night.
So you got to investigate 2 nights instead of 1, huh?
Right. We did the same location 2 nights in a row.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, Dusty and me were talking about that just a little bit ago.
Right. And that's the way that I always recommend doing a location, especially if you've got a large location. Because, with any location you investigate, and this is what makes paranormal research so difficult, is it's all about being at the right place at the right time. You can go to the most haunted location on this planet and absolutely get nothing. You sit there for hours and hours and nothing happened. But you can go back to the same location, with the same people, same equipment, maybe the same time the next day or the next week, and it'd be like something out of a Hollywood movie. It'd be so active. So, it's always great if you can investigate something more than once so that you can compare the activity, and if you have a significant difference in activity, you can look at your logs and see what were the differences, What was different last night that it was really active compared to tonight when it's somewhat calm. So that's why with a lot of cases that you do, like if you're doing a residence or whatever, it's always good to do more than one investigation before you try to make a final determination on the case. You may have just gotten lucky and showed up at a night when the activity was stirred up, or you may just be there on the opposite end of that. You may show up, they're claiming all this stuff's going on, and you get there and it may just be a dead night where there's nothing happening. Does that mean they're crazy? No. That means you just weren't there on an active night. So definitely always keep that in mind.
And also, if there's limestone present or quartz and stuff like that, if you have storm activity, the chances are things are going to be a lot more active than it would be on a normal day.
Right, limestone, quartz, sandstone, granite, and meth definitely. And a lot of your, a lot of your natural crystals, things like that. It not only can they somewhat store energy, but they're natural conductors of geomagnetic energy. And when you have like a storm comes up, the ionosphere's charged, the air's got that charge to it. It triggers the release of not only a residual activity, but it's like it almost becomes a battery. And like they're talking about in the chat about the quartz. Quartz is definitely a storage medium for it can store several different types of energy. And have you ever looked at the crystal skulls? Have you ever read much about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic hard drive or something.
Yes, exactly. They said that I forgot the exact number, but like the crystal, they were showing a crystal skull one night that was found in they've been found in several different areas, and they were talking about the one found in, is it Pelapunku, if I'm not mistaken?
Right.
They were saying that if they had the technology to read it, that it had the capacity to store just hundreds of terabytes of information.
Well, if you think about it, if they had the knowledge to read that, it would probably just about give you the history of the people.
Right. So yeah, and if you think of how much it can store when you have all these quartz deposits, and they're going to naturally become energized by the atmosphere, and this is not speaking in a metaphysical sense. I mean, we're talking about 8th grade physical science. So, your air, your geomagnetic fields, your electromagnetic fields, any of that is going to, when it carries a charge, is going to radiate into these materials and, sometimes activate certain things like residual hauntings. And
that's what I was going to bring up.
Mm-hmm. Right. So are what some people call a place memory.
Okay, we're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host Roger Belt and Cindy John Pierre, and our guest tonight is the teacher Frank Lee, and we're talking about crystal skulls and all that good stuff. So carry on, sir.
Well, I just mentioned residual activity. Just this weekend, we were there recording, and we're on the first floor of the place we investigated was a tuberculosis sanatorium, and the place was huge. The whole ground floor was built out of these thick stones, and then it was all brick from there. And at one point we were down on the first floor, and we're sitting there, and we hear this man talking, and we can only hear the man talking, or the one voice, but it went on for probably 10-15 seconds. And not like it was talking to us, but like we were listening in on a conversation. And then shortly afterward, we heard what sounded like a gurney being rolled down the hallway.
And nobody's in there.
Right. There were only two of us there in the building at the time.
Now, you said something about you investigated. What was the name of that building?
We actually did the Arkansas Tuberculosis Sanatorium, and which is at one time was the largest, it was the largest tuberculosis sanatorium in the United States. It was set up, the state of Arkansas the city of Boonville, had donated almost 1,000 acres to the state for them to build the sanatorium on. And at that particular time, when it was first built, the tuberculosis knowledge hadn't really expanded very much, and they weren't sure if it was airborne or if it was just bloodborne or how it was passed and everything. So it was fully self-sufficient. They had their own power, their own water, their own dairy, their own farms, even their own schools and everything. And there's just a lot of activity in a lot of places out there. But what we ran across in that particular building, which is huge. It was 5 stories plus a basement. Extremely intelligent. For instance, the first floor of it is still used it's now used as a mental health facility. So, some of the doors were locked, and we can't get into all of the areas in the first floor or into some of the buildings because of, the HIPAA policies, if you're familiar with healthcare, for the Privacy Act. But I record my audio separate from my video. I use a rail, and I mount my camcorder there, and I mount a digital recorder on it so that it picks up the same thing that the camcorder would, but it has a lot bigger frequency response, a lot better sound, so I can pick up EVPs with the video. When I do that, since we're not a big fancy team and nor a media company or anything like that, we don't have, we spent a couple of $100 on one of the sync slates like you see directors use. That's where, it'll have the movie name or the scene name and all of this on it. And right before the scene starts, they'll click the bar down and it'll make a snap. If you know what I'm talking about, the black and white board. So what I do is I will clap 3 times right after I start recording, so that gives me a marker so I can sync my audio to my video. So it doesn't sound like so it doesn't come across sounding or looking like one of the dubbed films from like the Japanese films or whatever from the 70s and 80s where they say something and, a minute later their mouth moves. Well, one particular time I clapped 3 times and right after it started, and you hear this voice come from inside one of those locked rooms that says, "Come in." Just immediately afterward. But it was a Class A EVP. And the good thing about the setup I use is I use headphones that block out any outside noise, and I can listen to the recorder. I actually heard that EVP as soon as it was captured because I used that setup. And during the course of the video and everything, there are several times that I hear something and I'll turn around and go to investigate more. And, every time I would say, I think I heard this or just whatever, you go back to the audio and you could hear where I actually was hearing something. So,
wow.
That particular setup works really well. What I'm using, for everyone, if you're looking for an audio recorder, you can go get several for around $60 or $70 that are pretty good recorders, but pay very close attention to the frequency response of the recorder and make sure it'll record to WAV format, WAV, because an MP3 format, you're going to lose a lot of your sound. And many times, and I've tested this myself, you can use a recorder that records in WAV and one that records in MP3, put them side by side, and the MP3 will completely miss the EVP. So if you're recording with MP3, you might get a response to that question, but your recorder not have the capacity to pick it up.
Well, see, that's why I like my old analog recorder.
Mm-hmm. And something else to pay very close attention to. Anything with microphones, audio recorders, or whatever, look at the frequency response. And what that is that's saying what frequency is it going to, what is the lowest frequency it's going to pick up, and what is the highest frequency it's going to pick up. Your EVPs, and keep in mind there's a big difference in EVP, electronic voice phenomena, and AVP, which is audible voice phenomena. If you hear it with your own ears, it is a disembodied voice, or an AVP. But true EVP falls below what the human range can typically hear. It falls into the electromagnetic spectrum of sound. What you're going to want to do when you pick out a recorder is try to get one that will at least go as low as 20 hertz. If you can get lower, that's great. but that's below what most people, that the average cutoff for most people is about 22 hertz. Anything below that, they can't hear it. But a lot of your EVPs come through around 15, 18, 21 hertz, somewhere in that range. So if your microphone or your recorder won't go low enough, then you're going to miss all those EVPs.
That's very interesting.
Right. So, and it's like I say, you can spend $60-$70 on a decent recorder. Now, the one that I've most recently started using that I added to my setup with my camcorder is a Tascam. And the model of the particular one I picked up most recently is a DR-05. The Tascam DR-05, I picked it up at Guitar Center for $99. Tascam just released a newer model that is pretty much the same, except it has, the DR-05 has 2 microphones on it, and it will record in stereo. The DR-07 that they just released has 2 microphones on it, but they're in a slightly different configuration. But still has the same quality and everything. But since the DR-05 is not the latest, greatest thing anymore, the prices came down considerably. Now they're going for about $100 at Guitar Center and places like that. So for $30, $40 more than what you'd spend on one that might be pretty good for voice or music, but you don't know how well it's going to respond to EVP, spend a few bucks more and get one that does excellent. It's well worth the money. So, and what I do is, I'm mounting it next to my camcorder, and I get all my audio from it and my video from the camcorder, and I combine the two after the investigation.
Do they have like a generic version for cheap slobs like us?
Well, for one of that particular quality, $99 is about as cheap as you're going to get. But for what it will do, it's better to spend $99 on something is going to work and work well than to spend $50 or $60 on something that may or may not work.
That's true.
So and it's about, what, that's a good price for somebody who maybe doesn't have $200 or $300 to spend on a lot more advanced model like Zoom. Zoom has one called the H1 that sells for $99 that, to me, I'm not really impressed with. But you can get into the Zoom H4n and models like that are a couple of $100. But it's for $99 you can go with that particular model that I'm using. It's going to do everything that the average investigator is going to need, and it's simple to operate. So
I tell you, Frank, something I've been looking at for us here lately a lot is body cameras. Like GoPro makes them, about $100 a piece usually.
Right.
But you can get them online for. And that would be awesome to have, because it would take away you having to have a free hand to hold a camera while you're walking. You can just clip it on your shirt, go, and it's got audio and video. I don't know how well the audio is, but the video's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's several people that I've been talking to who are going to those, and once again that goes back to like I was talking about. You can wear a body camera and carry around a unit like the one that I'm talking about, and you can still combine your video that you recorded with the audio from your handheld.
Mm-hmm.
So you still get, so your audio comes through in has the same quality as the high definition video.
Right.
So that's always something to consider too. But yes, those are, it's amazing the leaps in technology that video has made over the past couple of years.
And actually, I was thinking about, I've actually been looking into some of the trail cams, with IR on them and stuff.
Those are very handy, actually. We use those, and we'll set those up in areas that have a lot of activity reported, like shadows, things like that. But maybe it's a small area, and we're not going to be in that particular area much during the investigation.
Well, and also, you look at the time saved when you're going through all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because those things can be set to only, take pictures when something comes in front of it. So you're not going to have tons of stuff that you got to go through.
Right. And most,
to find what you got.
Well, and most of them on the market now, probably 90% of the trap cams or the game cams, have a setting so that you can set to take a picture, or you can have it record a minute-long video. And that's what we do on our investigations, is when we set out the trap cams, we'll set them on the highest sensitivity level, and we'll set it to record a 1-minute video every time it detects something. And, those come in very handy.
Data said she duct tapes her Olympus camera to her forehead.
So she must have upgraded from the Polaroid.
Yeah,
yeah. Of course, I imagine those pictures spitting out the front of it, right in front of your face.
So I tell you, just off subject, but I was just reading about it. How freaked out would you have been in Vicksburg and you walked into that old abandoned place and found that live dead body in there the ghost hunters found? Did y'all read about that?
I did.
Yeah, they walked in there and found a dead woman in there.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't.
I didn't hear about that.
You didn't read about it?
Or
you didn't share it?
She didn't share it.
I didn't share it.
Oh.
So when was this?
Let me,
maybe 2-3 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, ghost investigators found a woman who had died. They haven't said how, but there's been comments like, I'm surprised there haven't been more found,
Right.
Well, so many homeless now,
Yeah, it was on the 29th. So, yesterday? Or 28th.
28th, yeah. Yeah.
Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Okay, well,
the body of a... Do what?
Well, when I was driving through Mississippi on the 28th, I did not make any stops. I'm going to go ahead and, I have no part of that.
Note to self, watch Frank.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it says the body of a 69-year-old woman, Sharon Wilson, the woman who went missing from the Drummond Street in Vicksburg, has been found. Her body was found by ghost hunters on Sunday at the abandoned Kuhn Hospital, Kuhn, on Martin Luther King Boulevard. She had suffered trauma to the head. Her body has been sent to the crime lab, and her death is being investigated as a homicide.
Wow.
And they caught the guys they think did it, but... yeah.
So...
Somebody commented on there, said ghost hunters are so good, find them before they float.
That's sad.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point. Imagine finding that on an investigation. I think the only thing worse than finding an actual live dead or actual real life dead
A
body
live
on
dead
an investigation. Yeah, right, a live dead body. It reminds me of my old fire department days when we were pulling up a guy who had drowned. In this area, I live about 3 miles from a dam, and when they open the floodgates, you know, the water level rises quickly. There's a lot of currents and everything else. And they sound horns right before they open the gates, but apparently this guy had been drinking and he just didn't pay attention when the horns went off and moved out of the area. And so he's in this little fishing boat anchored. Well, the floodgates open up. He gets caught in the current, and it sweeps him, about 2.5 miles downstream before we actually found him. And that was after we had dragged the river for, several hours. So, I mean, he was dead to the point of rigor mortis starting to set in. And because it sets in very quickly when someone dies in the water. So anyway, as we're pulling him in, we had a rookie on the boat with us, and some of the way they were pulling him, I guess some of his spinal fluid had moved just enough to cause him to twitch just a little bit. And when that happened, they threw him back in the water. They're pulling him over they're pulling him over the side of the boat, and he twitches just a little, and the rookie's throwing him back in the water. So I asked him, I said, so what are you going to do if he's not dead when you find him? Make sure he is before you let him in the boat.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I got a buddy I got a real good friend that's a mortician, and he said the first time he ever I don't even know what you call it when they drain the blood and put the
embalming.
Whatever. Well, yeah, there you go, embalming. First time he was embalming somebody, they sat straight up and screamed. He said, and I don't know what they did after that because I was gone. He said he just took off running.
Hey, Frank,
Man,
Cheryl said maybe he was too small and they was throwing him back.
Right. It wasn't a keeper.
I have a question for you, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys do? Now, what are the rules? Supposing you come upon some kind of a scene like what we're talking about here, what's the first thing you do or don't do? Say you find some bones or you find, what do you do?
We have ran into that on investigations. I mean, we haven't found a full body or anything like that, but we have, ran across bones while we're investigating a site. And, the best thing to do is, immediately notify the property owner and either have them or, the local police definitely need to be notified in a situation like that, because that could be the missing link in a cold case that's going on.
You never touch them, though.
Right. Yeah, definitely do not touch them. And, if you ever come across that, try to not disturb it any more than you already have when you entered. And, yeah, definitely, get in touch with some people and let them know, hey, look, we're out here. We found a body. We found bones, whatever. And, but that's with anything you find that just doesn't look right. And you think it might be somehow part of any kind of crime scene, definitely, report that to the owners and, let them go through and notify law enforcement.
Either that or you take it home and your kid has the coolest project for Halloween. I used to investigate this house up in Kentucky when I lived up in Paducah. Mm-hmm. And they built a train track. Well, these people had anticipated the way it was laid out, the train was going to run behind the house, and the road was going to run in front of the house. So they built the house that way for either one of them come through. Well, they swapped it up on them. So the front door of the house was facing the train track, which was about 10 foot out the front door, and the back of the house was facing the road. But they cut the train track right through a cemetery. That's why the road didn't go. Well, there was one grave left, because the train people back then just didn't care. They were going to dig up cemetery and roll on. But there was one grave left, and the woman who owned it, it was her mother's house. Well, it was actually her great-granddaddy's house, but, it stayed in the family. And there's a lot of reasons why it was so-called haunted. I don't know. I never did get much out of it. But anyway, there was one grave out there. And that woman's brother went out there and dug that grave up. And took the skeleton out of it and carried it to school. For Halloween show and tell. They said it wasn't very long. The cops come up there and got him and everything else and made him go bury the body back and everything else. They got all upset about a skeleton in school that was real, that he just dug up from a grave for one day.
I mean, wow.
He was gonna put it back, right? I mean,
Yeah, he was gonna take it back after school and rebury it. But he caught before then.
Was the guy's name Ed Gein by any chance?
No, I wasn't that far north. Besides, Ed Gein would have got them fresh so he could at least eat them.
Oh boy, we've gone from the morbid to the unbelievable.
Well, talking about things like that, for anybody who follows the news closely, you may remember back in about mid-January, there was a story that broke from Birmingham, Alabama here. Of course, it had to be from Alabama, but it was about this place. It was an abandoned mausoleum and funeral home. The place was called Memorial Mound, and it was a you can look it up and Google Memorial Mound in Alabama and it'll tell the whole story. But the place had been built and it was for like budget burials, that it had its own funeral chapel, and it was basically the whole mausoleum was done underground, and it just kind of a strange concept. Well, since it was abandoned, not all of the bodies were taken out. So, and not all of the bodies were taken out, and there were people who like the urban explorers and things like that, who basically see, hey, that building's not being used, let's wander around in there and see what happens. Very smart. Had went in there and discovered that there were still these bodies in there. And somehow or another, some of the video that they had recorded got leaked to the news, and the news did a big story on it. Well, it showed one of the bodies laying in a coffin, and one was still in a body bag. It wasn't even in a coffin, and it was mostly just the skeleton left. It was all decomposed and everything. Well, between the time that they aired that on the news, and police actually, the guy first uploaded it on YouTube and Facebook, and between the time it hit the news and the police got out there and all this stuff, someone had actually broke in, and the one that it showed in the body bag had stolen that skull off that body. And they still have no idea where it was. I mean, people are crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. You want one for yourself?
Talking about
okay,
that,
you guys, we're coming up on the break here. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt and Cindy Jean-Pierre. and our special guest Frank Lee tonight, and also Dusty Ward is with us, and we'll be back in approximately 3 minutes or so. About 5 minutes, okay. Get yourself some coffee, tea, beer, wine, whatever it is you're drinking. Don't go away. Come back now.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Hi, this is Benjamin Dover, and you're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal.
Thank you for listening to the CJ Mars Radio Network. WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York. We're bringing you the best of paranormal radio 24/7. Featuring Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio on Monday nights, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Paranormalities and Ponderings on Tuesday night, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. Paranormal Experience, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Harley with Michael Gray, Thursday night, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Saturday, Two-Faced News, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. And Sunday, Blackthorn Tap at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Looking for drama and nonsense? Look somewhere else. If you're looking for the best in paranormal news, tech tips, advice, and entertainment, stay tuned. That's all we do. Here on the CJ Mars Radio Network. Thanks for listening.
And we are back, and we're talking about pizza machines. No, actually, we're talking about mausoleums and all kind of stuff. But pizza machines that make your pizza right there, bake it, and spit it out for you. You know, I mean, everybody should have one.
I'm just laughing because Cindy was basically telling us to shut up because we was right in the middle of a pizza vending machine conversation. She started going 5, 4, 3, and I got quiet because I flashed back to my childhood days when Mama started counting. I was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble now."
You knew if Cindy got all the way down to 1, then you'd had it.
It was
That's exactly right. Yes.
So,
well, see,
yeah.
my grandfather, he was a big dude, but there was 7 of us grandkids, and he worked out of town, so he'd come home on Friday, and he'd line us all up, and he'd take his belt off, and he'd go, "I know somebody done something, and I know ain't nobody gonna tell me which one it was, so I'm just gonna get all of you, and I know I got the right one." So we hated Friday, let me tell you.
Right.
We all tried to make sure we were out running around town somewhere.
Right. So yeah, that you know, I was just thinking if people actually heard the conversations during the break, that they would be filling out commitment papers for all of us. We'd all get
Exactly.
paper.
You know, in let's see, what's that place in Tennessee, Dusty? The mental place.
The what?
The mental place.
Bolivar?
Bolivar, yeah.
Well,
We'll
yeah.
send Roger and Dusty to Bolivar, and we'll send Frank to. Anyway, getting back on track. Bones, bodies. What do you do if you're investigating and you run across an actual skeleton or a freshly deceased corpse?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first thing you're going to want to do, because everybody's going to go, "Holy," you know.
Right.
You think a spirit popping up would scare the crap out of you? If you was around the corner and find a body, that'd scare the crap out of you. With me, I'd be like, "Holy."
Right. Right. Might scare the crap out of you so bad there's a second dead body there.
Well, either that or some dirty drawers, but
Right.
Did you bring a spare pair? Anybody brought a spare pair of underwear?
That's why they make those paranormal Depends that you see the picture for.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody should put them on before they go in. That way, no matter what you find, you're covered, you know.
Right.
Well, okay, an interesting thought. We just recently, there's been a rash of violence here that has killed some people, and the bodies have all been found in abandoned homes.
Right.
Now, I mean, these are places that you guys investigate all the time, right? So, what happens if you happen upon a crime scene? I mean, is it like the same as finding the bones, or what is the deal?
Yeah, I would recommend to anybody. Well, first off, if you're in there, make sure that you're not trespassing. Get permission ahead of the time to go in there. And you know, while you're in there, you know, you need to have some way. You know, if you're in any location that the property owner or manager or whoever's going to be in charge of it is not with you, you need to have a number where they can be reached directly at any particular time, because you never know what could happen. I mean, you know, you have to use the same basic safety guidelines with paranormal investigation as you would with anything else. You know, let people know where you are, let them know how long you plan on being there, have make sure they have ways to contact you, make sure you have numbers to contact the property owners and everybody else. All of this is just common sense safety things anyway.
Well, right, because if something happens to you while you're in that location, people after a certain amount of time, they're going to start looking for you.
Right.
Okay, well, being paranormally challenged, I don't investigate. I have a question. Do you guys carry supposing one of your guys get hurt, they fall, go through a floor, do you carry emergency kits or, do you recommend it or what?
Yes, a first aid kit should be the first piece of paranormal gear you buy. That's, and not only that, you can buy a decent first aid kit made to go in your car for, you can get them places like Walmart and things like that for like $10-15 that have bandages, tourniquets, even antiseptic and things like that. Keep those in your car. Keep, ibuprofen or, some aspirin. The reason I say aspirin is not only if someone has a headache or whatever, but someone starts to go into a heart attack. That sometimes aspirin can do it.
Yeah, I've heard you can put aspirin under the tongue and it's supposed to do something. But another thing that's a good idea also is to know where the nearest hospital is.
Mm-hmm. Be aware of that. And not only that, but, like you had mentioned earlier, go while it's still daylight and look around ahead of time so you can spot hazards.
Yeah, if you find, a place that you think is dangerous, that way you can avoid it when you actually do your investigation.
Right. And, but on top of everything else, find out if, everyone that you're investigating with, keep an eye on each other. Never go alone. Never. I've been doing this 15 years and I wouldn't go on an investigation alone. Am I scared to? No. What is it then? Well, what if I'm out there by myself and something happens to me? What if I have, what if, say, I get snake bitten or, what if I break a leg, break a foot? There are so many possibilities.
And you get the best EVP of your life and nobody's there to back you up on it. And
exactly. That, But know everyone that you're investigating. Know what their medical conditions are. Do they have asthma? Do they have, anything? Or find out if they're allergic to bees or wasps or things like that. So, that way, if something happens, you're prepared for it.
Just so you know, Roger, I'm allergic to asbestos and falling through floors. Just so you know, that's about it.
Right. but yeah, definitely, keep an eye on them. Are they looking kind of pale? Do they seem to be doing all right? Watch out for each other. Know if they're allergic to anything. If you have somebody who maybe has an allergic reaction to ibuprofen or whatever, and they accidentally get a hold of one, then you want to be able to prevent that ahead of time. And keep.
Sorry, I was go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, make sure and keep some Benadryl in your kit too. So if somebody does get around something they're allergic to,
right,
a good antihistamine can keep down it can contain an allergic reaction until you can get them to an ER.
I'm sorry, I was laughing. I was just thinking if I got any paler, Roger would be taking pictures of me and claiming it's a ghost.
Yeah, I'd have to post it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.
I mean, the only tan part about me is around my collar and half of my face because I always got a hat on. I wear long sleeves all year. So my hands are pretty dark, but the rest of me, hey, you get me naked running through a building and you get the best ghost photos of your life.
Right.
But hey, Roger, I just posted something on Facebook. Read that. It's pretty interesting.
I will.
It's about the Sleeping Beauty of O'Brien County, which my grandmother's granddad was her doctor. She lived 31 years, and I think I don't remember what it was, 20-something of them, she was asleep. She'd wake up at the same time every day for about 7 to 10 minutes, like 2 or 3 times a day. They'd shovel food in her mouth, she'd fall right back asleep.
Wow.
She never could figure out what was wrong with her, but her grave is, we was talking about graves a while ago, and they actually dug her up and moved her to a secret location that nobody knows where it's at because everybody kept stealing her headstone.
Wow.
So they dug her up, moved her to a secret location. But that was at the same, it's going through Crystal out there when they dug Crystal Road. Of course, like I said, my great-great-granddaddy was a horseback doctor of that area. So, I'm proud of that, but not proud of everything. Like when they dug the road up, they found a bunch of caskets where people was still alive when they buried them.
Wow.
And they'd scratched and pulled their hair out. Of course, back in
That was
the old days,
yeah.
I guess it never made it here, but they'd run a tube down in the casket and have a wire with a bell on it so they could ring the bell if they woke up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but, I guess my ancestor never got that technical.
Nowhere, and you ring your bell, and ain't nobody around.
Well,
I think you actually they had somebody staged there for like 3 days after the burial every time.
Well, that was actually another one of the purposes at one point of having the night watchmen over the cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
Because at one point in time, they actually hired people to stay.
Yeah, because people stealing bodies and stuff.
Right. Not only, but they weren't there just at night when most of the grave robbing was taking place. There were some who got paid to stay there even during the day so that they could listen if a bell went off. And
you gotta really suck as a human being if you ain't got a friend, a family member, a mama, somebody won't loan you $10. You gotta go dig up a dead person and steal their ring. You gotta really suck as a human being, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
CJ said if they answer that bell the way that nurses do nowadays, people are going to die.
Right.
Oh, we have great nurses, CJ. I've had some great looking ones anyway, work on me.
Okay, somebody has to explain to me how looking equals talent as far as nursing is concerned.
Well, you know what? When you're on Demerol, I don't care if she's sawing my leg off. If she looks good, she looks good. It's just that simple. Like a tattoo artist I had one time. She was doing this thing on my arm, and it was the one I got on Halloween over there, Roger. Whitney did it. Whitney's so freaking good looking. It's pitiful. And she was in a pirate costume, so that just made it even worse because it was low cut. She was sitting there doing my arm. No, she pulled the patch off. But, I kept dropping my arm down lower since it was a low-cut shirt, That's just a sidebar. But anyway, when she got done, she said, well, how do you like it? I said, darling, I don't care if you just did a smiley face on my arm. At this point, I'd love it. It's basically the same way with the nurses. If they're good-looking, it don't matter if they mess up. They're still easy to look at.
So what you're saying is if they mess up and give you the wrong medication and it kills you, that's okay as long as they're good looking.
Hey, I went out with a smile on my face anyway. It's better than the alternative I'm probably facing someday, like an angry husband or something, Anyway, so let's get off my desk, because that creeps me out anyway, so...
Never a dull moment with Dusty around.
Nope, that, just wait till when we do an investigation together.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, now see, and
Wait. Go ahead, Roger.
go ahead. You said wait.
No, well, you can go ahead. I had an ADD moment, but I can hold it long enough for you to talk.
I was just gonna say if we did that sanatorium there in Arkansas, you know, we might get Frank to come up and do it with us. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Or what I was telling you about the other day would be a great time for Frank to come.
Oh yeah.
Frank, what most people don't know, okay, I'm going to say this because we only have about 10 listeners, so, okay. But I work special operations for the prison system. We're the special forces of the prison system. That's my job. So we travel all over the state. And the old state penitentiary up in Nashville was built in the late 1800s, and it operated all the way up to the late 1900s. Nobody gets to go inside this place. But our chain of command, the head tactical team for the state, one of the head guys for that was down the other day, and we shut down the prison. And out of nowhere, he just walked up and said, "Hey, Casper," because that's what he calls me since he knows I hunt ghosts. He said, "Hey, Casper." I said, "Yeah, man." He said, "I just want you to know I've acquired keys to the old prison. So next time you're up, I'm going to take you on a tour of it." I was like, "Oh, that is so sweet." And that's the first step on me being able to get inside and do an overnight investigation of it, which no one has ever done. And that's where the electric chair was. And an inmate gave me a book on it the other day that he had put together, and it's got, I think it said 0.03% of the deaths that occurred in there. And it's like 50 deaths on that page. But I mean, he told me stories himself of the guards coming in there during riots and just shooting people through the doors.
Right.
And I mean, this particular inmate told me, said, I lived in cell block 5, told me the cell and all that. He said, if you happen to go in cell block 5, pull the medicine cabinet out of the wall and get my gun out from behind it. You can keep it. I mean, because back then he said, you know, you could buy a pistol for $25 from the guards, but the shells cost you anywhere from $50 to $100. So the shells wasn't very much bought. But that place, have you ever seen a picture of it?
I'm not sure if I have or not right off the top of my head.
All right, it looks like a castle. It looks just like a castle. It is amazing, and it's big, and right behind it, this inmate told me, he said, if you ever get to go in there at night now, because he knows I hunt ghosts, everybody does, he said, be sure you go out the back gate out there and do some work out in the field. I said, why would I do something out in the field? He said, well, they built that bridge through there, and when they was building it, they dug up some bones. He said, so they halted production and all that because they was for sure they had dug into an old Indian mound, you know.
Right.
He said upon research, they found that it was not an Indian mound. It's all the people who supposedly escaped from the prison. So in other words, the officers killed them and they buried them in shallow graves out behind the prison.
Wow.
He said there's hundreds of bodies that's just got murdered and buried in shallow graves out back in the early 1900s. So he said, I've seen some weird stuff inside that prison, man, that I can't explain. He said, I never believed in ghosts till I went to that prison in the 70s. So that might be something, you know, I'm working on that would be really cool for us to get together and do, because it's huge.
Absolutely, yeah. If you get that, let me know, and we'll go check it out.
Yeah, they housed up to like 3,000 inmates. So that'll tell you how big it is. It's like 1,500 cells in it. So it's pretty doggone big.
That's kind of facility where those trap cams and a DVR system come in handy.
Yeah.
Oh man, you ain't
What?
kidding. And about a week off
Is
work.
there any power to it?
No power. No power. Unless it is in the offices up front, but inside it, no, there won't be. I mean, the place is dilapidated at best on the inside, they say, and a lot of it's been took out. We got some of the old bars in our prison from it, and, but there's dungeons underneath, which the electric chair is now housed at the maximum security prison up in Nashville. And what's so cool about it, it's the actual original electric chair from the early 1900s, and the pieces that got bad, they used the old state gallows. They took the wood off the old state gallows and fixed the chairs, so that chair ain't nothing but death.
Wow.
And the room where it was is still accessible, and the dungeons underneath, as they call them, it was the hole, but it was really dungeons. They're all still there. It's where they made the Green Mile, if you've ever seen that, the movie The Furnace. Yeah, that's where it was all made inside there. So, yeah. Sorry. Okay, y'all go back to what you're supposed to be talking about.
Well, speaking of that, I remember last year seeing, I don't know if it ever sold or what, but there is, I remember seeing an article where an abandoned prison that was built in 1886 was for sale in New York.
I seen that, but I never did read into it. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you imagine? Of course, there's no telling what it would cost, but that may be something I might have to get get online and do a search and see if anyone ever bought it. But I want to say it was near Syracuse.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I think it was. If I ain't mistaken, I believe you're right on that.
All right, y'all. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, the Cindy John Pierre. And our guest is Frank the Teacher Lee. And special visiting guest here is Mr. Dusty Ward of Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations, which I'm a member of, by the way. Anyway, talking about prisons. Back to where we were.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even at... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, if you consider the way a prison is built, most of them are built, there's a lot of stone, the newer ones, there's super thick concrete. You have all the iron in there and, all the metal structures and everything. Well, think about the stone tape theory for a minute. How, because even concrete and masonry can, according to it, can hold these place memories or, that residual energy and store it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, the way that iron and different, metals like that are good conductors of electrical activity and magnetic energy, and then of course you've got electromagnetic or geomagnetic energy, but those are good conductors for it. And then think about a giant building that is nothing but concrete and stone with metal lining on the inside of it, filled with all of these people. Think of the emotions. I mean, I know you deal with this regularly, of a prisoner. All the violence, all the grief, sadness, depression, anger, hatred, all of this stuff all bottled up and trapped inside all of these walls. Think of, it's going to permeate these walls and just soak it in all of that energy. I mean, it would be hard to imagine a jail or a prison that doesn't have some degree of haunting activity there. If you think
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
I've seen a bunch of ghosts in the prison I work in, and it's not even that old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I've seen several in it, so it's wild. I'm trying to figure out on here. Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I was trying to figure out how to send a picture on Skype. I don't know if you can. Well, I'm trying it anyway. It's got Roger and Cindy and I don't know who all, but that's just the front, the castle part of the old building. Y'all let me know if y'all got that. But yeah, this place is monstrously big. Monstrous.
Yeah, there it
big.
is.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah. Man,
I mean,
it
one
kind
of
of
y'all
looks
can
like something
send it.
you'd see at Disney World, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, one
Disney
of y'all can
Castle
send
or
it to
something.
Frank.
Right,
Yeah,
but
one of y'all can send it over to Frank. Show him, because I don't think I've got him on here.
That is sharp. Wow. Take weeks
Yeah,
to
it's
investigate
amazing.
that.
Oh yeah, because it's built on like 1,500 acres.
Wow.
The surrounding grounds and all. I mean, it's a monstrous big place.
Wow, that's an amazing looking building.
Oh, did you get it?
I did, and
If we ever get that set up, I think you got to go with us.
all right, yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna tell you this. In that book, I never knew it, but they said it was state of the art. The place was state of the art. They said, a matter of fact, it had a swimming pool in the basement, which they claimed was a swimming pool. It was actually a extra large bathtub, but it was open for one day, and only one day, because on that first day the inmates found out, hey, it's easier just to drown your victims in it. So the first day the place was open, a few inmates got drowned inside that pool on the first day. So
Wow.
that's showing you the death rate, and then it went on for 100 years. You know, I mean, inmates murdering inmates, inmates murdering officers, officers killing inmates during riots and stuff. Just, I mean, you've got people that got burnt to death.
Officers murdering inmates.
Well, a lot of it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was heavy amounts of guns in there on inmates and officers, and of course the knives they make.
Right.
You know, it's an amazing story behind that place, because
if
you know,
think
it was
about
a different world.
how quick that could quiet a riot down if they start just going in there shooting inmates through the bars.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut up. I don't want to get shot.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you this. I've got a picture on my computer somewhere that they had a riot back in the, I want to say in the 70s, and they couldn't get it controlled. Could not get it under control right there at that place. They couldn't get it under control. The only way they got it under control is by the picture I have, and that's the National Guard brought a tank out and drove it into the Sallyport gate. And when those inmates saw the tank, they said they just threw everything down and went in their cells. They thought they was going to start shooting that tank up through the middle of the prison.
Wow.
That's the only way they got it under control. Drive a tank up in there.
Well, you got to figure a few blasts from that tank would calm down a whole lot of rioting.
Yeah, for sure. But my uncle actually went there to that prison. He actually spent time there before they murdered him up in East Tennessee at the prison. So he was actually inside that prison there that I sent you a picture of. So hopefully, I've been working this angle for a few years to get in there now, hadn't I, Roger?
Oh yeah.
And I just now got it to where I can go inside there with an escort. So, which a couple of them said, you know what? If you come up here, if we can talk them into a overnight tour, could I go? Well, heck yeah, you can go. Y'all can get me in there all night. You can bring your mama.
Get us in there for an overnight. You can bring your whole family. I don't care.
That's right. Bring your dog. Bring your mama. Just don't bring that talking bird, because he'll mess me up.
A stool pigeon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be awesome to get into. You know, those kind of places are great for, but because they're going to have a certain amount of activity at most of them. Those are great to try experiments out. And test new gear.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
well, see, there's 4 prisons now. One of them's not very old. It's in Nashville. It's probably only 40 years old at best. But there's 2. There's the old Fort Pillow State Prison down the road here a little bit. And then there's one up in East Tennessee, the one where my uncle actually got murdered in. They're all closed. The Fort Pillow was a real old one. They had several riots there. And, hey, I didn't know it was a full moon tonight, or almost full. But anyway, and then the one up in East Tennessee, it was probably one of the worst in the state. Yeah, Brushy. But they're making a distillery out of it. Ain't that ironic? Years of chasing down prison whiskey, and now they start making whiskey. As weird as that is.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to work an angle so I can get, be the first ones to investigate all of them. Because I've heard stories of stuff going on from the warden down there at old Fort Pillow State Prison. I've heard the warden down there. I talked to him one day when we was down there doing missions, and he told me about some things that's happened in there that was completely paranormal. That there was no explanation for whatsoever. So that's, if I could get in them, that would be awesome. That'd be an awesome one to do a live tour on via the internet,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Figure out how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. If you can get in there, just hit me up and I can help you with any of the tech stuff.
Oh, heck yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm working it. I'm trying. It's been a long process. And
we probably need at least 2 generators.
yeah, the good thing about it, you got the main yard inside those. You see those big walls coming off that main building. That's where all the housing units are at. Inside that main building is just offices. So you going around those walls going around, that's all your housing units. And right in the middle of it is the main yard. So you're completely surrounded by walls, and the walls you see there are 3 foot thick on concrete. There's no wood was in the construction of that place. It was all concrete and stone made, and every bit of it was right here in Tennessee that was made. They went out of state for nothing inside that prison. It was all Tennessee made. Most of it was made by the inmates. So it's an inmate place. Inmate built it and lived there and everything else. So that was their lives. They had 2 separate dining halls, one for whites, one for blacks. Just all, every bit, anything you think of in history took place there.
Yep.
So pretty cool.
So how long before you're going to get to take your tour?
I don't know. I got to get up there. They said next time we're up there, they're going to take me through it. So hopefully they'll hurry up and call us up there for something, for some training or something, and I'll get to go through it. And then I can start working the other angle on getting everybody else in there a little harder than I have been. Because they just now, they would already took me through it, but anytime I've been up there, they didn't really know where to acquire the keys at. The team didn't. But now they do. So they said, heck yeah, we ain't taking nobody in there till we take you in there. Cool.
So, awesome.
So, yeah, the first day it was open, though, people started getting murdered inside that place. It's crazy.
A lot of your old prisons, and, well, not just prisons, but like old, your old forts from, like, Civil War, War of 1812, and Revolutionary War. A lot of those sites are great to investigate because, they didn't even have concrete. They're built completely out of stone and brick, and they, a lot of the forts ended up being used as prisons at some point. So those are, you can get some interesting activity there. So.
Hey, Dusty.
Yeah, well,
Dina says she wonders if they would recognize you as a guard, the prison ghost.
I don't know. I've often wondered about that because,
She says things like people have to approach you in a case like that, and then Frank said, especially wears his duty belt.
It's a real interesting story. I was in our prison one night, and it was the middle of the night. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. This inmate started beating on the door. And I walked over and said, "Man, what is your problem?" He said, "I got to tell you something." I said, "So it's the middle of the night and you just woke up and thought of something you got to tell me?" He said, No, I looked out the window to see who was in here tonight and I seen you." "Okay, what you got to tell me?" He said, "Look over on that pole under them steps." I said, "Why? What's over there?" He said, "That ghost I told you about." And I turned around and sure enough, you could see a slender silhouette leaned up against that pole. And you could just see him plain as day standing there. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know, let's try something." I said, "Hey, inmate, it's past count time. You need to get in your cell." And the dude just kind of stood upright and looked over that way and turned and walked right through a door into a cell. So, I mean, that was his way of communicating. He heard what I said, and he respected me enough being an officer that he actually walked into a cell. Of course, then when I told them about it the next morning, they freaked out because I put a ghost in their cell with them. But, that was funny. But, I mean, they did. They freaked out. I've seen lots of stuff inside that prison. We had a boy that thought he was a werewolf at one time. I mean, he would literally take his shirt in his mouth and rip it off. I mean, dude was just crazy. And he hung himself in there. And no one knew it. Because the way the cell was built, he was back in the corner and you could shine a light in there. And he was standing there. He was about, I don't know, maybe a quarter, half inch off the floor. So it just looked like he was standing there. And like you was talking about the rigor mortis and all, when they cut the rope, he was still standing up when he hit the ground. He didn't crumple over nothing. But I was sitting up there one night and I watched an orb come out of his door with my own eyes, not on camera. I seen a ball of light come through his door and up through the ceiling.
Wow.
Just like it was nothing. There's been so many stories of ghost sightings at our prison, an actual working prison that's not, 30 years old, that it's unreal. I can only imagine what it was like before, in the prison of the 1800s where, in the early 1900s, before the cameras took place, back when officers still, would beat the brakes off an inmate for doing something stupid, or, they had a little more, control to handle things, where they, maliciously beat some people to death inside there. I mean, there's some in this book, a bunch of them had been stabbed, a few had been shot, some of them been choked to death, some of them been hung, some of them been drowned, some of them had been caught on fire. Some of them been self-inflicted gunshot wounds.
Right. Yeah, that's, people automatically think of like the prison, they think of prison, they think about, the gang fights, the murders and riots and things like that. But what often, what you never hear about, but, from, myself working for the Department of Corrections at one time, there is such a high number of suicides in prisons also.
Yeah, we we respond to sometimes 3 or 4 a week of people trying to kill themselves in our prison. Just phenomenal amount of people that's just so, which works great with the paranormal field, but they're so depressed and in such a rage and so saddened that, if nothing else, it leaves an imprint, that all that rage and sadness, that energy never leaves. It stays there, just like, right down the road here, and Roger knows what I'm talking about. I don't guess nobody else does, but the Kenton Bottoms. A couple left Union City, and they was going to Jackson, Tennessee for their honeymoon. They just got married. Well, they got 15 miles out of town, had a wreck. The car ran out in the field and flipped over, and the husband was killed instantly, and the woman was running back towards Union City, because that's the only way the houses was at that time, and she was trying to get help, and she was covered in blood, and she fell over dead in the field. And I think just about everybody in my family, except for me, and that is including my daughter, because she called me on her mama's cell phone one day and said, "I just saw the woman." What woman? The woman. Well, you got to narrow this down. There's only about 42 billion in this world. She said, "The dead woman." You seen a dead woman? Congratulations. She said, "No, the woman in the field." And she said her and her mom actually pulled over, and you could see the car laying there, the wheels still turning, and see the man inside and the woman running across the field. And then she got to ask me, said, "Why, when she got to a certain spot, did she just disappear?" Well, the only logical conclusion I came up with is that's where she died. Because she fell over dead within 50 feet of the car herself. But it was just an imprint burnt into the atmosphere, and that's a lot of what you get inside these old prisons is just an imprint of the sadness and depression and the anger and the rage and the hatred and, the racism and everything else that lives within inside those walls that most people, like you said, don't think about. They don't think about when you become a correctional officer, you're also a mentor, a psychologist, a preacher, a paramedic, everything. So it's wild.
Right. And all of that, it's hard to imagine it not being recorded into the environment. I was talking with Laura just over the weekend while we were investigating the sanatorium up there, and she was talking about while we were investigating there, we had no we didn't detect anything negative or anything that someone should be afraid of or inhuman or, nothing like that or nothing of the sort. But, there have been people who went there and at the same location and said they've seen the scariest thing they've ever seen and seen inhuman apparitions, things like that. And especially like in the morgue and, we're talking about, is that really something at that location, or have they had something follow them? Or could it be that maybe their fear or anxiety is actually manifesting some of that?
Well, I believe all those places, the psychiatric hospitals, the prisons, everywhere is the devil's playground. Because there's so many evil sinners in that place. I've actually come across one guy that they still haven't come up with a diagnosis for what the problem is, but I was standing there when the problem started. Right. I was standing right there because I walked in the pod because the pod officer called me for help because they didn't know what to do. Well, it was a small frame guy like myself, he probably didn't weigh 140 pounds. Well, he was screaming to the top of his lungs, preaching. Telling all those people inside that unit they was going to hell. And it was a segregated unit, so they was all locked in their cells. And he was screaming to the top of his lungs, new Bible verse after Bible verse after Bible verse. Well, he reached out and grabbed his celly, said he was going to cast the demons out of him. And his celly hit that boy so hard that the door flew open. And that just don't happen. You know, that's how much force come through that guy. And they squared off, and I stepped in between them. Tom said, you need to go back to your cell, and you need to sit down at that table, which they both complied. But they shattered the window out, which is that real thick, supposedly unbreakable glass. He shattered it with his head when he went through the door. And the nurse come back there, and by then I had him secured back in the cell, and the other guy in handcuffs sitting at the table, and the other yard officers responded, and the nurse come back there, and they've got him on Thorazine now.
Right.
Which pretty much zombifies him.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them nurses, and I told the psychologist, the man's possessed. That's all it is to it. I've seen possession before, and I know that's what's wrong with him. And he wasn't when he come in there, because I knew him from the first day he come in there. So it has happened since he came into the prison system. You know, because all that is, you know, you get that many rapists and murderers and everybody else that's done the unthinkable. You know, I don't know how much y'all have ever heard about the Natalie Holloway case. I know Roger's heard about it, but this teenage...
Yeah, she actually was from this area.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, one of the boys that raped her and murdered her and threw her through the wood chipper is actually in our prison. So, I mean, you got people like that running around. You bring the devil in. That's all it is to it. And I believe all those places, the old asylums, tuberculosis hospitals, you know, I mean, look at Waverly Hills, which Rogers got to go to, but I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you had nurses hanging themselves, jumping off the tops of the building and everything else. I mean, the suicide rate, even among staff, you know, like you say, the suicide rate among correctional officers these days is ungodly because of the stress and the toll it takes on you and the mental fatigue and the mental stress and all that. There's nothing holy about the place. None of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have church service, but yeah, that's just gang meetings to make deals for drugs and stuff. There ain't nothing holy about that place. None of them.
Right.
So I believe you will get a lot of demonic activity inside the old asylums, and because people just don't go crazy. I don't believe. You know, I don't believe you just go crazy. Because I mean, they talk about that in the Bible. I can't call his name right now, but you know, he was in the cemetery when Jesus cast out Legion into the swine, and they committed suicide off the side of the cliff, which, sidebar, Legion was the same one named in the little boy they made the movie The Exorcist about. It was the same one named in Germany when they exorcised Emily Rose. That's what both those demons said their name was, Legion. Possibly the same one. I don't know. But, you know, all that came with mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't know that mental illness is really just a sickness of the mind as much as it is a sickness of the heart. You know?
Right, absolutely. And, you know, it seems like people with, you know, with emotional problems, psychiatric disorders, chronic illness, things like that, it seems like they are a target for negative entities.
Mm-hmm.
Because...
Well, because they're weak. Their mind isn't functioning correctly, so they don't know how to fight it off.
Well, and not only that, but say a person who, you know, you can't help but wonder how many times has schizophrenia been over the years? How many times has it been misdiagnosed for someone who actually was being attacked or tormented by, a dark or malevolent entity.
Well, another valuable point with Emily Rose, and I can't call the boy's name that they based the movie The Exorcist on, but I mean, both of those were diagnosed with schizophrenia and medicated heavily for it, and it just gives the demons more time to get stronger. And you was talking about, I mean, excellent point. You was talking about how rooms and buildings hold that negative energy. I've told you before, I know, but I got to go during the demolition process. I got to go to St. Louis and go in the room where they actually held the exorcism that got the demons out of the little boy they made the movie The Exorcist about. I actually went into the room where they cast the demons out of him in, and it was a real heavy presence in there. I mean, they told me, I knew what the hospital was, and I knew it was being demolished, and I was up there working, so I just swung by before they started tearing it down. And one of the workers said, yeah, everybody else is afraid to go in there, but I'll walk you in there. And I knew what floor it was on, because I'd researched it, but I didn't know what room, and he didn't either. But as soon as we walked in there, I stopped, and I was looking around, and he looked at me, and he said he didn't know nothing about anything like that's paranormal or nothing. He said, man, this is the room, ain't it? And I said, yup, this is the one. And you could feel the sadness and the evil still left inside the walls of that room. You could just, when you walked in there, your heart just sank down into your stomach, and cold chills ran up and down your spine. He got the same feeling I did. So yeah, everything holds that negative energy, and so
Absolutely.
I think that's where a lot of your hauntings
This is all very interesting. We've got about 2 minutes left. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Everybody in the chat room, everybody on your phones, iPads, what have you. Frank, thanks very much for coming on tonight. Dusty, always a pleasure to have you. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, and it's always an honor and a pleasure for me to come on. I always enjoy being on the show, and appreciate you guys having me.
Well, you're welcome anytime. You know that.
Yeah, anytime you want to come on, you just give me a shout.
You and Dusty both.
I wish you'd take that skeleton face down and put my face up, and then the ratings would soar. It would soar through the roof with just my face on the top.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, it's just a consideration. I mean, I'm just putting that out there that I'm willing to do that.
Right, and I know you are. You love sharing your wonderfulness with everybody. So
I do.
Anyways, next week, Lord Rick Rowe is coming back on. We had a lot of problems the first time he came on, but hopefully we're going to get to do a good interview with Lord Rick on the 6th. Everybody be sure to come and check that out. Dita, my buzzing cousin, always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Laura, thank you for coming.
Not even sure what that means.
Okay, can we do the little announcement before we go much further here?
I gotta make an announcement.
Yeah.
My neighbor.
We got a big announcement.
My neighbor just fell off his bicycle. If that's an announcement.
On the 18th.
The 18th of July at 9 o'clock at night. It's a Saturday night. Dusty, this is especially for you and for you, Frank. We are having a special celebration of our good friend, Bo Jerkhart.
His Eminence, we're doing His Eminence Greatest Hits #1.
Yes, clips from times that he was on the air that people lost total control and couldn't breathe. And then we're going to do a live interview with him, and everybody, Dita, is welcome to call in. Anybody, Laura, Mike, you're out there, I know you are. You can call in, and Frank, we want to hear from you because you've met with him and you know him and you know how wonderful he is. So Everybody just,
And I just want to say this to everyone listening. I got to hear some of the clips that are going to be put out there, and oh my God, I couldn't breathe. It was so hilarious that.
just, yeah.
Yeah, well.
Same here. I tried to edit that thing and my ribs hurt for weeks.
Yeah, well, I still don't like him because he tries to compete with me being the best looking guy in the paranormal field, and there is no competing with me.
Well,
So,
that's yet to be seen. We're going to have to put you two up against each other because I've seen Bo, and Bo is pretty cute, and, he is a favorite with the ladies.
I'm adorable, though. I mean, that's the difference. He might be cute, but I'm gushingly adorable.
Gushingly adorable.
That's right. That's a quote for the day. I'm gushingly adorable.
Oh, boy.
You guys,
And so
always a
bright.
pleasure.
And so bright, my daddy calls me son. So,
That's what I said. My mama called me son. I was so bright.
that's right.
Oh, boy. Well, in any case, everybody remember the 18th at 9. We're going to start at 8 o'clock at night, I think, because we want to get the show and then the interview, and we want everybody to be able to call in and just remember that Bo is mine, Dita, mine. Do you hear me? Mine.
Don't let me forget that date, Roger, because I'll forget it by the time I walk off the porch.
Write it down, the 18th of July.
Oh, like I have a pencil.
9 o'clock.
I can beat it in my concrete with my inmate beating stick, but that's about it.
That will be 8 o'clock Central Time for folks like us, Dusty.
Sew it on my duty belt so I don't forget.
Oh, okay. You guys, it's been awesome. A lot of great information got put out there tonight, and I always love talking to paranormal with Frank and you too, Dusty. You're my awesome brother. Hopefully, you and I and Frank and maybe some of his guys can go do the sanitarium up there or the prison. That'd be even better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or the old mill down there. What was that old iron mill down there?
Where's that at?
I don't know. Where you live, Frank? What state?
Oh, you're talking about Sloss.
You're talking about Sloss Furnace?
Yeah, Sloss. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's here close to Birmingham.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's in Birmingham. Yeah.
If we gotta
work on something, get all of us together.
If we ever get set up to go to Purdy and do the Hearst Mansion up there, we need to zip on down and hit Frank up
to the Hearst.
There.
Or just invite Frank up to the Hearst with us. You ever been there, Frank?
No, I haven't.
Well, there we go.
Well, actually, I think I did try that, and Frank said, "Oh, I can't do that. You come down here."
Oh, well, that might be. We'll figure something out. Y'all close the show out. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, hopefully things will slow down enough where I can actually do some recreational investigations for a little while.
Yeah, I've been doing recreational stuff all day. Oh, wait, no, that's illegal. Sorry.
Only in 48 states.
I've been mowing the yard. I'm happily high and married now that we've passed all the...
Really, we need to bring the show down. But
I said I'm high and married now because I can get high and marry a guy now. So if my wife leaves me this time, I can beat the crap out of him. Won't nobody think nothing about it. I just want y'all to know out there in the world, I support any kind of marriage as long as it's not me getting married. I support any form of marriage there is.
Thank you, Dusty.
No problem.
If I ever get a divorce, I'm gonna marry a ghost.
Man, that's a good idea. I'm gonna try that. I convinced the doc. Never mind. Close the show out, Roger. Almost let too much. Okay.
No,
How long we
take
got,
that back.
Roger?
Take that back. I'm going to marry my Tom because she's got this sexy little voice, but if she gets on my nerves, I can turn her off.
How much time we got left, Roger?
We're overdue.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I convinced the doctor when I went in there to have her look at my shoulder that I had erectile dysfunction and got Cialis, so surely I can convince the judge I'm marrying a ghost. Just saying. I'm gonna try that. That's my next venture. I'm getting married to a ghost.
Oh boy.
I can marry dead people.
Hey, I can see a movie. I married a ghost.
Hey, well,
gay
just
people get married.
For anyone listening, if you haven't wised up and turned it off by now, talking about marrying a ghost, look up ghostsingles.com.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. Y'all just wait though. Y'all wait. See if I don't marry a ghost. If gay folks can get married legally now, I can marry a dead person. You wait and see. Next time I come on this show, I'm gonna be married and have a marriage certificate to prove it. It's gonna be a ghost too.
Okay.
My next day off. Yep, it's set in stone. I'm gonna be the only ghost hunter that's actually married to the person he's trying to find. What's your wife look like? Don't know. She's a ghost. She's invisible.
I ain't seen her.
Guys, can we bring the hello? Can we bring the show down?
I don't know. We'll think about it. No, seriously.
Quit being like this now. Come on, guys. Be nice.
You might just have to hit the big
so much fun.
Well, you brought me down, I can tell you that.
Okay. All right, folks. Let's say good night. We can talk after the show's over.
Good night, Mary Ellen.
Night, everybody. Night, Jim. Bye.
Have a great night.
Good night,
See
Frank.
y'all, everybody.
Good night, Dusty. Good night, Roger.
My wedding packages will be sent directly to me, please.
Good night, Dusty.
I don't need a toaster. Maybe a Ouija board. Good night.